Hello, good afternoon. I am DeQuay Wilson, your announcer on the Wave Your Grades Motivational Talk program featuring American students dedicating academic excellence to American veterans. And our veterans thanking our students for being serious in education. Your Wave Your Grades program is brought to you by the Norman Group. For more information on becoming a partner or learning to bridge the five wealth gaps, please contact Willie Norman. You may do so by phone at 816-525-8708, or you may send him an email at wnorman, the number 2, at att.net. Now, with today's very special guest, here is our Wave Your Grades host, civilian educator, Mid-American Hall of Fame educator, Carl Boyd.
Thank you so very, very much. Good afternoon. Thank you to Quay Wilson, to Quay, our producer, our announcer, our engineer. Thank you so much. This is Wave Your Grades, coming to you at 1 p.m. every Saturday on KUAW, which stands for Knowledge, Understanding, and Wisdom, and our program is indeed dedicated to those who serve and those who have served in the military, and the young people who pay their tribute to those who serve by their academic excellence in school. We have a very special guest this afternoon from whom we have not heard for a while, and this makes this reunion a good thing. Please keep in mind your mask, your hygiene, your distance. It brings us great joy this afternoon to ask if she is with us today. Her name is Emma Tubes. Emma, are you with us?
Hello.
Hello to you. Thank you very much for being with us this afternoon. It has been a while. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes. Are you all right with me?
Yes, indeed. And as a matter of fact, let us start with the most important question, and we will go on from there. That question being, how are you and yours?
We are good. My husband David and I have continued to do our business virtually for those things that we would have to do in meetings, but things are still going very well. We have not been ill. And so things are good.
That is outstanding, and in as much as this is a reunion program featuring Emma Tubes, let us start by asking, before you get to your new consulting service, please remind our listeners of your prior endeavors.
Oh, sure. Gosh, I don't know how long ago it was when I was last on the radio show, but I was doing a lot of volunteer work, and it was focused on transitioning military because I had finished my military career this year will be 7 years, but when I last was on the show, it was probably within 3 or 4 years of my own separation from the military. And I recognize that there's lots of support, there's lots of programs to help transitioning military reintegrate in life and career and health and all these various things. And so I was involved in a lot of that with transitioning military and primarily in career, because that's usually the biggest challenge that is very difficult because of the culture difference between the military work environment and a non-military work environment. So that was a lot of what I did, and that was something that I talked quite a lot about on the show, and was the chapter president for Kansas City AUSA, which is the chapter here in Kansas City that provides a voice for the Army and support for soldiers. And so one of our priority focus in our programs was in young professionals and transitioning military. So that was kind of a combination of effort with my nonprofit work and just being a volunteer leader in the chapter. So I did a little bit of consulting then, but it was just project work that I would get the opportunity to be invited to speak at a SHRM chapter meeting. I did do some SHRM conferences. That's the HR Professional Association. If you're not familiar with SHRM, it's an acronym and stands for Society of Human Resource Managers or Management. But I did do some HR consulting, just a little bit, but I was doing a lot more nonprofit work then.
Absolutely, and as a matter of fact, and as much as you have mentioned your military career, will you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. I served for 17 and a half years on active duty with the Army, and I fully intended to retire with 20-plus years. And I was a major when I retired, and part of the reason why I retired at 17 and a half years versus 20-plus was that our military went through a reduction in force. People in the service will refer to it as the RIF, but the military downsizing that occurred around 2010 to about 2016. I got caught up in that whole military reorganization of the U.S. military, and so I was up for promotion when it started, not understanding how much the system was going to change and not understanding the potential for my career to end prematurely. I'd never been laid off. I had no understanding of instability of your career if you continue to do well, and I had been doing well. So when I didn't get selected for promotion a couple times in a row, because in the military promotion system, you get two chances. Well, when you don't get selected after the second chance, then you're kind of forced out. And part of it was because they're reducing the size of the military. And so whatever the reason was for my not getting selected, I never really understood it, because the system changed so much, and it was really unexpected for me. So the whole challenge of transitioning military for me was really personal, because one, I wasn't ready for it, and I just did not have a plan, and I just did not know what I needed to do this well. And even then, in 2010, 2011, which is when the downsizing started, nobody really understood it other than the senior military who had been in the Army long enough to have seen the last time the service had downsized, which was in the 90s. So, full-bird colonels and general officers were the ones who really understood what it meant for the military to downsize. Nobody else really understood that. But anyway, I get out of the service, and I actually am able to do quite well in my transition, partly because of my experience as a commissioned officer. I was at, the senior levels of my career. I've been a planner as part of my responsibilities. So I had a skill set of just being able to take a dynamic environment, unexpected occurrences in the environment, and just continuing to move forward on whatever needs to get done. So I think part of my success was because of who I am and who I was in my career. But I recognized that a lot of people weren't going to have the same type of experience as me, because they were not as mature in their career. They did not have the skill set for planning that I did. And so that's part of my passion for transitioning militaries. What I did, I don't want anybody to have to have done what I did, because I did my transition in less than 5 months, and most people will plan it for over a year. And the downsize did get reversed. The military got down below 1 million at some point, but then it got reversed because there was still a lot of instability. There's still some national security concerns as far as the strength of our nation. So it got reversed before it got all the way to where they intended it to be. And a downsize normally takes about 10 years. And it occurred, it officially started at the strategic level around 2011, but they pretty much ended it and started growing the military again around 2016. So it went on for about 4 or 5 years.
Well, let me just ask, as it relates to something that you mentioned, two things going on at once. One of those things was you mentioned the term being as mature as you were in your career, but at the same time, you were fortunate enough to come out of the Army at a young enough age that you could be of service to others who had ended their careers as well. So that is a good thing, because your tenure serving post-military career has been stellar. And I would just mention this before we go on to Tubes Consulting, which is why you are with us this afternoon. But very quickly, you are an Army veteran. The organization of which you are a part is an Army organization. You are serving Army veterans, but I think, if I recall correctly, it was not exclusively Army veterans whom you served.
Correct. So Tubes Consulting is an LLC. So this is a for-profit business that me and my husband started in December of 2014, and we have several business segments. One of them is personal and professional development, and this is where our focus and support to transitioning military, that segment is what where it falls under. The other two business segments are consulting, where David is an IT professional, so his segment is IT consulting. Because of my background in the military, my business of my consulting segment is on military programs and strategies, and I support organizations who are interested in the military talent pool because they're looking to hire them, or maybe they have them on their teams already and are looking to improve their military programs and strategies as far as their diversity and inclusion programs or their workforce engagement programs or things like this. But the personal and professional development segment is something that David and I both do. We do transition coaching, we do academic coaching, we do contract teaching, and just in the last year, I have received a certification to be a strengths profile practitioner. So now I have a strengths assessment tool that supports the personal growth and development of the individuals that we're helping. But the Kansas City AUSA is an educational nonprofit. But it's a military association, and interestingly, all of the various military groups that are in the metro, they all have different eligibility criteria for how to be a member, and some of them have a specific eligibility criteria, like being in a particular service. So an example is the Navy League. So the Navy League, the eligibility criteria is, you have some type of affiliation or association with one of the 3 C services. So the Marines, the Navy, and the Coast Guard. But if you're not, if you're a civilian, that is also an eligibility criteria. You can be a civilian and be a part of that association. The AUSA, even though Army is in the name, the priority focus of our support for voice and support is the soldier. So that's the Army service person and their families. But similar to the Navy League, any interested civilian is open to participate or be involved or become a member of the association. And it's really just having a desire to serve and support those issues and concerns that matter to the overall national strength of our military. So that's something that I think a lot of military associations have that as a misconception that they always have to improve understanding on, is that civilians who are interested are able to become a part and get involved.
Let me say to you that I will ask you, and then our announcer, producer, engineer, DeQuay Wilson, will remind us that we want you to inform our radio listeners as to how they can contact you more than once in the program. And if you will do that, that will lead to my next question. But please tell us how to contact Tubes Consulting.
Oh, sure. So our company website is at tubesconsulting.com. And then if you want to get either David or myself, you can use info at tubesconsulting.com, or if you want specifically to reach David, or if you want to specifically reach me, it's our first name in front of the at.
Okay. Now, you mentioned your husband, David. I don't want to be too informal. I know that's how you refer to him, but Mr. Tubes apparently, and correct me if I'm wrong, had a background even before you formally incorporated as a limited liability corporation in information technology. And it sounds like, considering what we are doing today, which demands even more distance learning, if you will, and the use of social media, that he probably had a leg up. What was his background?
Oh, sure. So David, in our relationship while I was in the military, was the military spouse. I was the soldier. So that was a little bit unconventional as
Yes.
far as the period of time that I served. There were much more military spouses that were women
Yes.
than there were men. Um, Somewhere along the way, they stopped the policy for don't ask, don't tell. So nowadays, because soldiers and all servicemen and women now can be openly gay and serve, there's a lot more frequency of the military spouse actually being a man, um, and um, and with women who have the career versus the man. So something that was really interesting with our experience is that the male spouse always gets connotated to be a woman, and with David, obviously, it was not true. And being an information technology specialist, we moved when the Army told me to, you had an assignment here or
Mm-hmm.
there. And depending on where we were, he may or may not have opportunity in the level of employment that he would want to be doing because his expertise was above entry level. He was, a senior analyst level type
Yes.
of a computer program developer. And so there were just times in his career while I was on active duty where he was unemployed or he was a contractor, maybe at an installation agency or something like this. But when we got out of the Army, neither one of us was ready for it because I thought that I had another 2.5 years
Yes.
before retirement. Neither one of us was ready for it. And we realized that the gaps in his employment were part of his challenge in getting opportunities afforded to him. And so he really wanted to be able to do impactful work with his expertise. And he actually likes to work with organizations that are smaller because they can't afford to have an IT department. They're not big enough to have an IT department, but there's technology requirements for all businesses today that, someone who's kind of nerdy and likes techie stuff and is gadgety, that level of expertise may not be enough to support the needs of the organization. But that's the type of work that David really likes to be able to do because working with David, it's personalized to what their organization needs, whether it's a nonprofit or a small business owner who only has 5 employees, but they have technical requirements so that they're efficient and so that they're protecting their data and they're doing the things that their business needs to do at the best capacity for marketing and communications because all of that now requires technology.
Now, one of the things that is important to the work that you have done is the use of the term transitioning. And we are talking about organizations, but take someone like myself, an individual. I am older than retiring age, which means that I might have a desire to transition
Hmm.
beyond organizations. How do individuals appeal to you for your services?
So I've expanded my audience. I mentioned that in the email that kind of regenerated our
Yes,
connection.
yes.
Is that the concepts that I applied when I was in transition, they actually have to do with your decision making and how that you engage within your environment with other people. And so you don't have to be a service person to apply these concepts.
Hmm.
So anyone in transition, there's usually some type of barrier that is maybe preventing them from getting to the what's next in life or school or career. What's next is a phrase I use all the time in my coaching because it literally is, okay, you're shifting to something else, you're in transition. What is that? What's next? And so some of the barriers could be fear, it could be a lack of knowledge, it could be a lack of network, lack of access to necessary resources, or or just various things. It could even be a lack of support from people who are trying to
Hmm.
protect you, and they're afraid, and
Yes.
their fear is the barrier. So whatever it is that is the barrier, I help that individual to identify what is it, and is it something that you can remove or at least reduce the barrier so that you can actually take a next step, whatever it is, to that next thing, whatever that might be. And I make a lot of analogies in the work that I do because sometimes people don't know what their long range end goal is for what's next, but that's okay because a lot of people live life without a plan. Unfortunately, they're responding to things as they happen, whether it's the environment or other people's initiatives, and being able to direct your own steps is what I'm supporting with people that I work with.
This is so, so good. Let me remind those who are listening that this is Wave Your Grades. This is the program that asks American students to let American veterans know not only how well they are doing in a school, but also that they are dedicating their excellence to those who have made it possible for them to indeed go to school in the United States of America. And this afternoon's very special guest is Emma Toops of Emma Toops Consulting LLC. My name is Carl Boyd. I'm your host, and your announcer is DeQuay Wilson. And you pointed me in the direction of when I mentioned, by example, I am an individual, retirement age civilian, and you were talking about helping to guide the possibilities for my future. And when we work, I'm an educator. I started teaching in 1964, and the young people with whom I work are adolescents. So we say, what do you want to do?
Mhm.
Among the things that we ask of them is, what do you like to do? If you are not sure what your orientation is going to be, how does Emma Toops Consulting help me as it relates to a direction if I'm just not quite sure which direction I want to go?
Oh, sure. I really love this. I work with a lot of young people too because of academic coaching,
Mm-hmm.
and it's it's really part of the reason why I became a strengths profile practitioner. Now, a lot of people will receive feedback throughout their life from other people, whether they're their peers, their friends, their family, or people in their work environment. And that feedback, it kind of informs them on the things that they're good at and the things that they're not so good at. And sometimes that's good enough. And so the strengths that they believe of themselves is because they've been told, or they have observed it on their own in self-reflection. So they're very self-aware. But some of the things that aren't necessarily well understood as far as strengths are those things that are intangible. How do you define your strength of love? How do you define
Mm.
your strength of motivation? How do you define your strength of drive? So those are things that are kind of intangible, but you qualitatively measure them. And based on the qualitative measure will determine whether or not one person will give someone feedback that they're good or bad at a particular thing. So when an individual, whatever age they are, believes that their strength or weakness of whatever things they've tried in life is one thing or another, that belief of self is what drives their decision making.
Well,
Unless they have an opportunity to be given feedback that is unbiased, then it's based on an opinion and observation of somebody else.
well, one of
So,
the
strengths profile and other assessments, there's a lot of them actually that employers will use. Um, Strengths, character, personality, the way that you deal with stress, all these various type of assessment tools, they factor in a little bit of the psychology and the sociology of the way that people behave so that people have a little bit better information when it comes to making these decisions that affect their life, school, or work.
well, let me say to you that these, excuse me, are very important keys as it relates to orientation at any age. I talk about being
Hmm.
beyond retirement age, and you and I both talked about the adolescence. When we come back from our break, obviously, one of the things that you have had to talk about to many people, and that I will ask you to talk about to our listeners, is the peculiarities of the particular moment in time that give us some challenges we could not have anticipated at this time a year ago. And
Mm.
please hold on with us through this break.
Oh,
Thank you.
Wave Your Grades will continue after these words from our sponsor. Wave Your Grades is brought to you by the Norman Group. For more information on becoming a partner or bridging the 5 wealth gaps, please contact Willie Norman by phone at 816-525-8708 or by email at wnorman2, that is wnorman the number 2 at att.net. And we are back with Wave Your Grades. I am your announcer, Decoy Wilson, here again with our very special guest. Here is our host, Carl Boyd.
And our very special guest, Emma Toops. Emma, during these times when someone is calling upon your services to help guide them, what are the kinds of challenges you are having to meet today?
a lot of it is fear,
Mm.
and it's fear of uncertainty. So a lot of people have security when they're employed. And the environment that we are in today with the COVID pandemic, some of that has really challenged the environment of career for many people.
Yes.
And so when that stability is challenged, there's a little bit of a lack of control for them, and there's a lack of certainty which they used to have because work used to be stable. So I I relate it to that whole being stuck. What's next? People don't know, and so they don't decide, or they're afraid to make the next step. They don't know what that next step is. So a lot of the challenge for the people I'm working with today is in career because
Yes.
life has changed in regards to their work environment. and now they don't know what is next. Maybe they have been laid off. Maybe their hours have been reduced significantly. Maybe the business is completely closed and is no longer even a business because of the challenges of the pandemic. And so now there is this huge amount of fear that they're dealing with, and they don't know what's next.
One of the things that you are no doubt familiar with, and as a matter of fact, there may be two editions of the same offering, and that is the occupational handbook. And a decade ago, the occupational handbook would be something that says if you are looking for the next 10 years, these are the careers that you can anticipate being highly sought. For instance, in health, for instance, in the hotel industry, and the different kinds of things, education always, but that would be the International Occupational Handbook. Now, COVID-19 has kind of thrown some things out of the window because Emma Toops just informed us that a lot of those traditional outlooks are not available to us. So you're dealing with the social, the psychosociological, as well as the practical all at once. These are some fantastic challenges for Emma Toops Consulting. Let me just take it down to a very simple level as it relates to dealing with your clients today, and that's just in terms of managing appointments. Ordinarily, I might call you to say, can I come to your office, or can you come to mine, or many of those things we don't do now. So how does that traditional contact and follow-up manifest during the pandemic?
Well, I met you through networking, and so I do a lot of networking,
There
and I
you go.
really enjoy it. And so that has drastically been reduced because events are no longer occurring
Yeah.
because of the limits of the number of people in a particular venue. Some have become virtual events, and I do participate in some of those. And since they started opening up some businesses in June, there are some groups that I am going to for in-person events, and they're small, but they're where people know each other, people trust each other, and so it's not necessarily a big event where there's a lot of strangers all in the same space. But for my business, with my coaching, my academic coaching is designed to be one-on-one in person.
Yes.
But when COVID kind of changed the way that we do business, I had to virtualize my coaching as well. So I do it on Zoom. And every now and then, depending on the time of the coaching session, I've actually have also done it to where it's a phone call. And I had a coachee a few weeks ago who he had a stack of appointments that was going on in his day, and some of them went long, and so our coaching session was, late afternoon. He was literally in the parking lot of, I don't know where he was, but he was in the parking lot of, let's say, Target,
Yes.
a shopping area, because he knew he had an appointment with me, and he just used his smartphone, and it was a Zoom call. He had the link to launch into the Zoom meeting room. And so for about 15 minutes of his coaching session, he put on his earbuds and he was standing next to his truck. And we were doing a coaching session kind of on the move. He ended up moving to some place where he was sitting down and behind a table, but his family was having dinner. So it was an interesting, has it happened like that before type of a circumstance, but you just kind of go with the flow with what's going on. And that's also part of what I help my students and my clients understand, is that the fear that you have is because you don't have control of a circumstance or you don't have control of the environment, but you always 100% have control of yourself.
Well, this
What you
is
think and how you behave, and what do you do with the knowledge that you know. You absolutely 100% of the time, always have control of that.
Emma Toops, Toops Consulting LLC. You're talking to a former teacher from 1964 who has advised young people on occasion. And what you just described to me does not sound like, young man, for your meeting, put on a blue business suit and a white shirt and a tie. And when you go to the office, take off your hat and greet that person who is going to interview. It sounds a little different than that.
Right. I can put on the business suit and go to a network event where there's a bunch of retired generals and other senior military, and I can
Yes.
absolutely um, engage appropriately in that space, as well as engage appropriately with a 15-year-old student who is having, challenges with algebra 2.
Wow.
It's adopting the
Yes.
necessary engagement and communication behaviors that you need to demonstrate and exercise in the circumstance that you are in.
That is so. I don't know what just happened then. I must have transferred something to you because I was getting ready to use the term demonstrate. That is just that's amazing. And let me put it into context because I honestly do have a legitimate question to ask of you. But I was going to say, in the throes of an era where we are striving so diligently for equality of opportunity and equality of respect, I was going to ask Emma Toops, based upon your military career, whether or not there were gender challenges as you found yourself climbing the ranks in the military at the time that you were there.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the military, even though it is equal opportunity now, as far as there's no positions that are closed off purely based on gender. It is standards based. You have to be able to meet the requirements of the job or the branch or the whatever it is the work is that is demanded of those individuals. The opportunity is equal for you to pursue those goals. You have to measure up to the standards.
Yes.
So that's something that absolutely is now open for everybody, but that wasn't true when I served. They reduced that barrier towards the end of my career. I actually might have already been out. I don't remember when they implemented that open to all for women, but I mean, there's still the culture within the service, though, because it's a generational mindset that it has to go all the way through the organization and all of the people who are involved and included. It's a paradigm shift, and it takes time for that cultural shift to occur in the way that people will accept that that is now the new regulation. So when I was serving, I started my career in the mid 90s, and I finished it, 7 years ago in late 2013. And so there were times when I was the only woman
Yes.
on the staff because I was in an infantry brigade as a captain, and at the brigade level, that was the smallest unit that I could be assigned to as a woman. That because as far as my branch within the army, I was a chemical officer, so I could not serve at a battalion that was a combat battalion at that time.
Wow.
Women
Now,
chemical officers can now, today, but not when I served. Um, and it was certain opportunities for a career growth opportunity for me. There were a couple times where I felt that even though my merit as far as the level of performance and expectation for behavior and I've met all the prerequisite training and education needed, I was at the same level as everybody else who was a candidate, except that I was the only woman. There were a few times when I kind of questioned whether or not that might have factored into me not getting the job.
I suspect that I do not have to ask the question, and if I did, it would be considered a rhetorical question as it relates to how your military experiences helped you in terms of your being able to help others now. That's my presumption, and you can correct me if I'm wrong.
My military experience and what I did and what I didn't do and where I was and where the military sent me, and this is true for anybody. Your life experiences accumulate to become who you are. It is who you are. You can't just say I'm not going to own that anymore because I don't like it. It has happened to you, so it's part of who you are, good or bad.
Hmm.
But the difference is that you take what you want to and move forward with it and pitch the rest if it's garbage. That's part of the whole self control. And I think with uh, some of the experiences that I had in the military, because it was very, well, it still is. It's still male dominated. It's still very, very type A personality and very assertive and very, all of this, very confident. That that is who I am today. I have been overpowering to other people who didn't serve in the military and is the same age as me, and they're a peer of mine as far as all these other demographical things. But because of my experience, I have a level of confidence that maybe far exceeding other people.
Yes,
And it's being true to yourself. It's being authentic, being accepting of your uniqueness because everybody is. And I think that it's unfair to put everybody into a bucket of sameness because we're not.
absolutely. Let me remind you and those who are listening that I would be asking more than once for your contact information. And by the way, just in case someone turned to us late, let us revisit exactly what it is that you are presenting and what they can avail themselves of. So, contact information, and once again, who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name is Emma Toops. My company is Toops Consulting, LLC. It's a business that my husband and I do. We we do consulting in IT, that's David, military programs and strategies, that's me, and we both do personal and professional development. We like to work with those who are stuck in deciding what's next in school, life, or business. And we try to help improve them, what it is that you're doing so that you are maximizing on your strengths and efficiency. You can
Now,
contact either of us um, with an email. TubesConsulting.com is the second half of the email address. If you want to contact David, it's David at TubesConsulting.com. If you want to contact me, it's Emma at TubesConsulting.com. If you don't know who to contact, it's info at TubesConsulting.com.
thank you for that. And in as much as we have talked about attributes such as empathy, love, as well as particular talents, and I talked about teaching adolescents, and you have expertise from students all the way up to those who are retiring age, military and civilians. Would you offer who might be your primary target audience?
I I like to work with young people. Nothing against folks who are at the end of a career or maybe are at mid-career, but they tend to be a lot more objective as far as the concepts of personal power and being excited and encouraged and empowered in being able to apply the self-awareness and taking those next steps, having initiative in doing those things. The people that I work with who are a little bit more mature, they're kind of set in the way that they think, and so paradigm shifting is what I'm talking about. And so their paradigms are a little bit harder to shift. So they're a challenge, and I am more than happy to work with them, but it takes a little bit more time because they're kind of ingrained in whatever that story has been that they believe, and part of it is getting in their way. So my target audience is college-aged young professionals and students who are maybe looking to go to college or finishing up their college degree, as well as folks who are maybe in their mid mid career, where they've realized that the last 8 to 10 years they haven't really been applying themselves in what really is their passion. They've decided that they want to do a shift intentionally because they're unsatisfied or maybe they're burnt out. And so they're open to opportunity. They're really objective in taking the next step in something new and different.
It sounds like you might be almost equally enthused by someone who has an idea of what they want to do. They're very enthusiastic about it. They're coming to you for some direction and they can't wait to get started, as you are about someone who needs motivation and might need to be helped in terms of getting started. On that spectrum, is there one line about which you are more enthused than the other?
I much prefer working with people who have positive energy because as
Okay.
a coach, I'm empowering and encouraging them. I'm modeling some behavior for them as far as confidence. And if I'm working with someone who really is got a lot of baggage, and I'm not a counselor. And
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I don't have that kind of medical training to kind of unpack whatever that might be. So I can help people
Ooh,
shift
this is so
from
good.
being a little bit of a pessimist to being more optimistic and a little bit more self-confident. But those who have kind of behavioral concerns that are clinical and it is really affecting their behavior, then I'm not qualified really to help them. I can refer them to trained
Now,
professionals.
this is so good. I'm looking over at our producer, announcer, co host, engineer, DeQuay Wilson, as you respond to that question for this reason. That to me makes you someone whom I can trust. And let me tell you what I mean by that. If someone is, quote, promoting, unquote, their product, themselves, their service, and you say, who's your target audience? There are those who are wont to say, oh, I'm equally enthusiastic about everybody. It doesn't matter who you are, just come to me and we're going to help you out. But for you to help us to understand in a very honest way that you would really like for us to be enthusiastic about where we want to go or where we are indeed going. You don't know how much I appreciate the honesty in that answer. I,
I like people who have positive energy. The strengths profile assessment actually has an element in it that it measures your strengths based in three contexts, and one of them is performance. And that's what a lot of people assume is their strength. If you do it well, then it's a strength. But there's also two other contexts, and one of them is energy, and the other one is how often do you use it, so frequency of use. So in three contexts, your strengths are measured, and for for the realized strengths in our assessment tool, it's because you do it well, you have high energy, and you do it frequently, or you want to do it all the time. So the other things that follow into a different quadrant on the spectrum, they are still a strength quality, but for yourself, if it measures in a different quadrant than realized strength or unrealized strength, then it really kind of isn't a strength. It is a learned behavior or a weakness because there's a negative energy element to it, or you're not doing it enough to have it be a strength. And because I'm a strengths profile practitioner, that is why I prefer to work with people with positive energy. We identify those strength qualities that may not have the positive energy. We can work on those things, put some direct effort in improving their personal and professional abilities in that particular strength quality, but they have to be objective to that effort because it's that negative energy piece that is keeping it from being a strength.
Now, this to me sounds like if I am someone who is affiliated with TUPS Consulting, then if I am a candidate on my way into a service with a large business, a large corporation, or if I am someone who has an entrepreneurial bent and I am interested in going out on my own, or if I am a person whose personality is such that I just want to enhance who I am as an individual, all of us can come to you.
Oh, absolutely. I'm all about personal and professional growth and development. Self awareness is a huge part of that.
Now, your husband, David Toops, would have us to understand that WWW stands for World Wide Web. How expansive is your reach?
Oh, okay.
I know that you are local and we are in the greater Kansas City area. Do you have the occasion to go beyond?
Yes, I do, because I still do military advocacy and volunteer work. There's a platform that I'm a mentor for called Veterati. And it's kind of like a matching system between veterans and military spouses with people who want to support their transition. And I've been a Veterati mentor for 4.5 years. And so these people that I'm working with, and this is a free hour phone call when I get someone to request one of my meetings. And I talk to them for an hour about what it is that they're looking to do or want to do or whatever it is that they're interested in or curious about. And these people are anywhere in the world. I've talked to some people in Japan or in Germany or in all parts of the U.S. And now that I have Zoom as an opportunity to do a meeting room,
yes,
my coaching also, I have some out of state clients also.
My goodness. Well, it is August 8th, 2021. August 8th, 2021. We are
2020.
we are
Or you're talking about next year?
Yeah, we are 1 year
okay.
from this date. If you looked ahead those 12 months, what would Emma Toops say is a climate that would help us to do a lot better than we seem to be doing now? A year from now, this is just kind of a philosophical question. This is not a particular LLC question, but where are we going and what would you like to see?
I have actually told this to other people in the last month or so, and is my wish for everyone is that they were a confident leader of themselves at a minimum. That would be my wish for everyone. And that if everybody were able to do that, if they were confident in leading themselves, they took those next steps, they made those decisions with initiative, and you know, having fear is okay. Having courage is taking that next step regardless of fear. So being that confident leader of yourself, that I think is, if we had more people in our world who were that, we'd be in a much better place.
Well, as a matter of fact, you might very well have anticipated my next and last question, because we so appreciate your being with us, and that is simply, is there anything with which you'd like to leave us? And that statement you just made is so apropos that you may not have to say any more, but is there something that you would like to leave us with this afternoon?
I think that we need to encourage people more.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of negativity in our society, and I'm not
Wow.
just talking about U.S. I'm just talking about the world in general. There's a lot of negativity. There's a lot of judgment, and I think that people need to kind of be a little bit more objective to understanding that not everybody is the same. We're all human beings, yes, but everybody has a uniqueness about themselves. If you're confident and a leader of yourself and are willing to work with others, then why aren't we able to get along better than we do?
Well,
So I don't know. I'm an optimist. I
good.
am a strengths profile practitioner. Is all about energy that is positive, and
All
so
right.
that's what I would like to leave
Well,
everybody with, is just to be more confident and be a leader of yourself.
all right.
Recognize the uniqueness and authenticity of everybody else on the planet,
Thank
because
you.
everybody's got a part and a role.
Thank you so much, Emma Toops, Toops Consulting LLC. Thank you, and I pray that we can call upon you again and perhaps sometime soon.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's such a pleasure to be invited back to speak to you guys
Well,
again.
our pleasure. Thank you. And here is our announcer, DeQuay Wilson.
To close today's Wave Your Grades program, our host will recite one of his daily, year-round morning motivational messages for students in honor of our troops. I am DeQuay Wilson. Here is Carl Boyd.
To students across the USA, your Stoots for Boots message for this day, August 8th. American students, your proud nation is thanking you in advance for becoming number one in the world. That reality is in your hands. Thank you for listening. Gracious God and wonderful Wanda, I'm on my way home.